Hello and welcome back to Frogboy X1 Gaming. I'm Andrew and today we're talking about the VRR update for the PlayStation 5. It is live. It should be live. If you have already downloaded the update, you just need to go into your screen and you just need to restart your PlayStation 5, go into your screen and settings, and then go ahead and click that on. I'm going to caution against clicking on clicking on the other option, not supporting let's go over here and we'll just go down and look at it real quick so you can see this. Screen and video, you're going to go down to VRR. So you'll have an option that says apply to unsupported games. I'm going to kind of advise against using that right now, right out of the gate, unless your sole purpose is to play Elden Ring. Now, in my testing, I have found bugs with this update. I live streamed the whole thing. Everybody got to see. With this selected, I was having problems with games, especially games that don't have frame rate issues at all. So the biggest thing I'm going to recommend is leaving that off unless you're going to play Elden Ring. Now it does work with Elden Ring and it does feel good. It is more consistent with what you're getting on the Xbox Series X version now. So that is great news for you PlayStation guys that really that bought Elden Ring on the PlayStation. Dude, you guys have finally got an answer to be able to enjoy this game in as smooth a fashion possible, and it's really awesome. So I'm really grateful for this update. Now, it's buggy, like it is buggy. I do kind of feel like this is a software solution, but it is. See, I don't know. My TV's giving me a 100% VRR connection, so. Maybe it's software, maybe it's not. I really do. I don't know. Like, I'm still on the fence about that. I don't understand why it is the things that it does. So, Spider-Man Miles Morales and Spider-Man and Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. If you're going to use this feature in the 120 hertz mode, you are going to lose resolution when you go to fidelity. Like, I mean, it's really apparent. It looks right there. If you switch back and forth, like, you can see the extra clarity, the sharpness, everything gone. Now, in the PlayStation blog where they were talking about this, they said that this was going to increase your visuals and it was going to make things look sharper and crisper. Actually, it does the exact opposite. It literally does the exact opposite on those games. Once you switch over to 120 hertz mode and the fidelity mode, you lose all of that. Once you turn it back off, you get it all back. So far, I've tested Deathloop. Deathloop is running great in the fidelity mode. It feels a lot smoother than it ever has before. It still looks good. It still looks sharp. Games like I'm getting ready to test out the Destiny 2, but as it sits right now, Spider-Man's doing great with it. You've got in the performance RT mode, you get like what feels like 90 frames a second. Like, it feels really good. It feels really smooth, but it also makes the image and the world kind of devoid of It feels a little more barren. It definitely feels a little more barren, but the 40 frames a second version, even though you're getting stripped back fidelity or whatever, it still looks good. It still looks 4K. It still looks good. It's still definitely worth your time. I tested it with Ghostwire Tokyo. It didn't work. Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, we tested that. I tested Godfall. Godfall was giving me problems, but it was still working. It almost feels like Horizon Forbidden West is giving you 40 frames a second, but I'm not sure. It still kind of seems a little. Most of the stuff that it's designed to work with, it is doing what it's supposed to do for the most part, as long as you do not have it enabled with the work with everything mode. As long as you don't have that enabled, the apply to unsupported games, as long as you don't have that enabled, it works and it does everything it says it's going to do with the games that it's supposed to work with. It even had me questioning my TV for a minute there, just how buggy it was. Like, it literally had me questioning my TV. the biggest takeaway from this, the biggest thing that really, really hits home is the fact that you get a much stabler experience with Elden Ring. I cannot stress that enough. It is freaking phenomenal. It's great. It feels good. It feels like I'm playing it on the Xbox. This was a much needed feature, and I'm glad it's here, and I'm glad that, you know, I'm glad that this is something that Sony is starting to see and take seriously. This is going to ultimately benefit all gamers, Xbox, everybody. Now more developers are going to be more likely to use this feature and be able to implement it in the game as it's coming out. They're going to be able to toy around with it, build in new features, maybe better visuals. They're going to be able to adjust the parameters of the game a lot more because of this feature. This rising tide's going to lift all boats. So everybody's going to benefit from this. It's going to be awesome. Thank you, Sony, for finally getting on board and finally delivering this. Now, if you guys would just give us 1440p support, that would be really awesome, because I do think that 1440p support with VRR is really going to make the PlayStation a much better experience. Now, it does do pretty well on the 4K, and if they can get these 30 frames a second games up to 40 frames a second and still retain that beautiful world and that beautiful look, I think that's sufficient. Like I can't really ask for, you know, native 4K at 60 frames a second. I've already come to the conclusion that is not exactly going to be possible. But in order for VRR on the PlayStation 5 to be good, you're going to have these things running at 45 to 60 frames a second for it to be a viable option, to be able to still give you a smooth experience. And I really do hope that developers don't use this as a crutch to pull back, to allow to become more sloppy. I would much rather see them utilize this tool to make gaming better. Basically, that's what I got to say. This is a solid update. It did have me freaking out because I switched something and it screwed up my PlayStation. And I was like, oh my gosh, it broke it. And that was all on live stream. I live streamed that for about 3 hours. The whole thing, testing it all out, testing out different games. So if you want to watch that, go ahead and check that out. But this is the shorter condensed version, and I'm pretty happy with it. It's doing what it said it's going to do, especially on games that support it. But games that don't support it, yeah, you're still going to run into a few problems with that. It's going to be unstable. I've noticed that if I do get out of the game, go back into the game, that it would work with certain games. So it's not like it's broken per se the whole time. It is just, you're going to have to toy around with it a little bit for it to work. Like, you might have to start a game. You'll get inconsistent. It's kind of weird. Just use it as directed, and only use this if you must. If it's something that you really feel like you need to try to use, go ahead and do that, but use it with caution. Elden Ring, it is working. I've tried it multiple times now, and it does work. There was one instance where I had to restart the game for it to kick in and actually work, but for the most part, it was working 3 out of 4 times. So if you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe. I do also have a link in the description for the monitors that I bought. These are great, and they do have the full 100% support of this. So if you want something if you can't afford a bigger TV, like $1,300, then the monitor is a good option to be able to use VRR as well as 120 hertz refresh rate. Spider-Man at 90 frames a second is literally amazing. It feels so great. So if you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.